Good afternoon. It's Saturday, July 2nd. Yesterday was a big day. We announced avoidcourt.com. I posted 3 videos yesterday giving you the history of the company, a little background on the product, a little future look at the product. But I'd like to spend today a couple of videos talking to you about the methodology. How do we get to design the product? How did we come up with technology-enhanced dispute resolution? As a former mediator and as a person who studies psychology and watches people, it's clear that the largest percent of a conflict is the emotional component of it. And the emotional component of conflict blinds us. So, in designing an electronic enhancement, when we say technology enhanced, online dispute resolution, the term which we don't use or like or promote, it connotates, the connotation is that you're using Zoom, FaceTime, GoToMeeting, Skype, just to mediate. And it's way more than that. And as I said yesterday, we're distancing ourselves. I wouldn't even say distancing ourselves. We're removing ourselves from the word mediation in the design and practical utilization of the TeDR methodology. As I mentioned yesterday in the previous videos, nobody wants to buy any mediation. It's mandated by the court. And today, because of that, it's not a desired approach to conflict resolution. As I mentioned yesterday, when you put 2 attorneys or more in the mix, the neutral, the power the individual human, the human element could have, dissipates. The neutrals, majority of which are ex-judges and attorneys today, and the regular mediation that we get court referred. So while in the last 9 years, we've anticipated the marketplace and we've watched our competitors closely. In the design of their software, one aspect. The biggest aspect is how did they handle and utilize, more importantly, electronic negotiation. I mentioned our competitor and a guy that I have immense respect for, Dr. Thiessen, Smart Settle. His website and his videos and what they use to promote their message is win-win. It sounds cool, and in theory, it should be what we should want to do. But when you look at how successful companies run, specifically, we'll talk about supply chain. They would, in public, they would state that they want a win-win, the suppliers and the vendor. And I won't pick on Amazon, but usually the bigger the company is, the more successful the company is, the more successful their supply chain operations are. It's a great book that's influenced the methodology, and I want to introduce in this video 5 books that have influenced me as a practitioner, because I specialize in emotional intelligence, and because I see myself as a dispute system designer from a technology point of view. And the book is, you start with no. The Yuri Fisher book will be the second book I'll talk to, Getting to Yes. Win-win. That's theoretically what our objective is. But we have to recognize all conflicts start with no, or there wouldn't be a conflict. The two parties have a standoff, and usually it's multiple issues. When you're in sales, or in my case, I've been dating for 9 years. We get a lot of no's in dating. You get a lot of no's in sales, and you get a lot of no's in negotiation. No means maybe. Now, I'm not saying it obnoxiously, because no does mean no, and you can't impose yourself against the will of other people. But you have to anticipate in negotiation that no doesn't mean no permanently. The story in the book, starting with no, is the publisher or the writer of the book asked for the methodology of a very, very serious negotiator for 2 years. And there was always a one-word answer, no. But that challenged the author to get his plan together, familiarize himself more with the landscaping of other books in negotiation and how to differentiate it. And he continued to refine the proposal until he got a yes. That's what happens in negotiation, and that's what happens in conflict resolution. When I was studying conflict resolution at Nova Southeastern University and the master's program, there were required courses and there were elective courses. And I was more, as a practitioner, interested in the elective courses. And I think as I give credit to the methodology today, the TeDR methodology, and of course now the patent, I was impacted in multiple ways. But I was primarily interested in mediation, arbitration, and negotiation as a practice and refine of that science, because I felt that was my role as the human negotiator, the human mediator, the human arbitrator. The human arbitrator is much like a judge. I mean, there's really not a lot. We do use arbitration panels where you have 3 or more arbitrators, but you're making a decision just like the court. So one of the classes I had to take was facilitation. And I remember I didn't have any desire to take it. I actually tried to get out of taking it. But when I got the texts, books for the course and started reading ahead before the class even started, I raised my hand to professors online. You can raise your hand online. And I said, Dr. Cheryl Duckworth, what is the difference between mediation and facilitation? And she said, the methodology. Obviously, as a technologist, I understand what the word methodology means. But I said, explain that, and how you're answering my question in that manner. And she said, well, in mediation, it's a process. You begin with opening statements. You often go into private caucuses. You reconvene. You're working towards a settlement. The ultimate is you want to get to an agreement and a settlement, and it's over, and the parties are theoretically win-win. Sometimes you get an impasse, and then there's processes to break off, and then reconvene. And I said, well, if I've read the textbooks in facilitation, it's sort of the same thing. And she says, absolutely. But you have a broader application because you're not following said methodology, if that makes sense. So, as mentioned, my competitor, again, Dr. Thiessen, and I don't think of him as a competitor. I think of him as an inspiration, a person who's inspired me. And in his dissertation and on his website, he says if you use electronic negotiation versus face-to-face negotiation, both parties get 16 to 20% more than they would have settled for. That's the key word, would have settled for. That second book I've already mentioned, very famous, Getting to Yes, Yuri and Fisher, Harvard, Associated Professors. probably the most widely used book in sales, mediation training, millions of copies sold. Sort of tells you how to negotiate an agreement without giving in. Well, there we all are. We're trying to negotiate from what we want. And some of us are good negotiators. Some of us are not good negotiators. As much as, and I said I'm not here to bash attorneys. Let's say it's a marriage where, I don't want to pick on men. Let's say it's a woman-dominated, strong woman relationship, and the man is more docile, or vice versa. When there comes to divorce, they may want to get an attorney because they feel that it would help them have a stronger position in the negotiation. That's a human element. Follow me? That's the human element. Sorry for the video movement. You want to get a Perry Mason or a Matlock to argue your case because you don't feel comfortable doing it yourself. It's another disadvantage of in face-to-face negotiation. But in a Yuri Fisher book, there's a story about an orange. And, I'm not going to tell the whole story, but basically there's two teenagers fighting over an orange. And by nature, giving in, getting to yes, settling, we almost want to go to half. If you're just fighting over an orange, it's easy to settle. Either cut the orange in half or go buy 2 oranges. But in the Yuri Fisher book, it's about the girl wants the zest of an appeal of the orange and a recipe for an orange flavored cake. And the boy, it's kind of one of a sexist age, it's based on the age story, but the boy just wants the meat of the orange to eat it. Well, both parties could get 100% of what they want if they negotiate it properly. But the emotion and sort of a limited look at the outcome, because it's more the desired result that you want. When I heard that story, I started thinking about what if there's a third party to the conflict that wanted the seeds of the orange to plant an orange tree. He or she would get better, after the tree grows, matures, and bears fruit. Have unlimited oranges. A lot more than one, obviously. I learned when I lived on a boat, and I lived close to the Tropicana orange juice factory. They sell acid, they sell pulp, they sell fragrance, they sell flavors, colors. There's a lot coming out of an orange. Point being, folks, electronic negotiation can give you, my competitor is right. If you electronically negotiate and remove most of the human elements, and the software is designed properly, then both parties can get more than they would have settled for. Whether it's settling one-on-one with each other, whether it's settling with a neutral, a mediator, an arbitrator, a decision in arbitration, or whether they hire lawyers. In the scenario that you hire a lawyer in the orange fight, what's he or she going to say? Give me a retainer. I'll get you what the law says you're entitled to in an orange, and I'll recover attorney fees because we had to pursue in litigation. A little bit of an exaggeration when we're only talking about an orange, but when we're talking about typical conflicts, it's very applicable. I was hugely influenced by a former FBI negotiator, Chris Foss. Chris's book, again, a book that heavily contributed to the development of the methodology. By the way, I've never explained the name of what we call the methodology, and it's e.Resolv. Electronically, we call it Resultative Electronic Negotiation. Again, distancing ourselves from the word mediation or arbitration as a process and blending the good of all activities in what's known as dispute resolution processes. But anyway, Chris Foss was an FBI negotiator. And I remember in his book, one of his first stories was that if you're negotiating for the release of 4 hostages, in his case as an FBI negotiator, it wouldn't be uncommon. You can't win by splitting the difference. You keep 2 hostages, kill them, do whatever you're going to want to do, and I'll take 2 and we're out of here. You follow me? That's when we design dispute systems. We have to design the dispute system from that mentality. It's not splitting the orange in half. It's understanding what the parties want. One of my other competitors who's not active in business today, as I understand it, was an attorney named Charlie Brofman, who created a company, probably one of the more successful, if not the most successful domestically in the U.S. in this space, known generically as online dispute resolution. And if I remember it correctly, I don't want to misrepresent, but I think he was litigating a case that had been going on for a long time. The judge was retiring, and the judge said, hey, I don't want to hand this off to my replacement. You all just litigated and litigated and litigated, and let's get this thing settled. And they gave him 2 envelopes, 2 pencils or pens, 2 pieces of paper, and said, write what you want. Give it to my judicial assistant, and we're going to make a decision on this case. Okay. A lot of times, the other side doesn't know what you want. The other side wants. You could say, well, back to the orange scenario. One wants the peel, and one wants the meat, one wants the seed. 3 parties could get 100% of what they want. But how do we get to it? That's where electronic negotiation comes to play. Now, there's some paranoia about it. I laughed or made some humor yesterday and talking about ethical activity in law, and attorneys are really big on ethics. They have to be. They have to be. The industry has to be, because it's a trusted client privilege industry. It's much like a priest in confession, right? So you have to have ethics to operate. The software is more ethical than a human, unless the human or humans programming it are unethical. I mentioned my competitor yesterday, the other competitor, Colin Rule, who wrote the article about silicon judges and removing biases. So electronic negotiation is the future. And the ability, there's another author of a very famous book, the Emotional Intelligence book, defining what emotional intelligence is, by Daniel Goleman. I read a lot of articles by Daniel Goleman, and there are emotional intelligence assessments, as I mentioned, like the Myers-Briggs personality assessments. And we leverage that in our methodology and in our patent, unlike anyone else. And when, like in the example of the 2 envelopes and 2 pieces of paper, in our system and processes, the parties identify what they want, and they range and gauge it and prioritize it using the software. In the AI engine, or if we use additional human elements, and that's really key. I adamantly disagree with no humans. I said that in the introductory videos of avoidcourt.com. We absolutely have humans involved in augmenting and complementing the technology processes of our products, because they need to be. This is a human touch business. I joke about lawyers. When they get to court, a lot of people see it as the theater for them to practice their magic. That's what they're all waiting for. The big successful ones do, apologize. The big successful ones do. They want to wait to get in that courtroom. But about 98% of conflicts never see the courtroom. We're fascinated when it does. And those actors, or advocate actors, can win a case or lose a case easily. But you don't worry about that in electronic negotiation. So to kind of wrap this up, the methodology is based on electronic negotiation processes, and there's several great books, and in what is e-negotiation versus face-to-face, splitting the difference, getting the yes, the emotional intelligence equation, and you start with no. That's the influences, along with other classes in psychology and other massive readings, negotiation, which is an art that I think as a human I'm pretty good at, but everybody can't have me or someone that's classically trained in negotiation to represent them. But we've built the processes and the methodology into the patent and the software. And we've removed all biases. And our code is ethical. The win-win is, we're beyond win-win. Win-win is old school. It's understanding what you want and what you're willing to settle for as a match to the other person without the bureaucracy and the cost of court, without the need of having these attorney actors, and attorneys are more, they're advisors too. But I want to be able to say that the e-negotiation is a more pure way to resolve conflicts than anything we've seen in our lifetime, and in the last couple hundred years in the United States. And what we've done through the methodology is taken the best practices of these disciplines and built it into our methodology and in our patent. So I hope that helps. I hope that introduces my influences and the influences that continue to shape the technology-enhanced dispute resolution methodology. I've mentioned, if you want a copy of the methodology, please write me. I'd be glad to provide it. It's a living, breathing document that, if others want to communicate to it. And the TeDR, Technology Enhanced Dispute Resolution TV on YouTube, just type in TeDR TV on the YouTube search. And this video is where that'll be, or where it'll be placed. There's other videos, and we hope to interview, I've written in the last few weeks, as we announce this methodology, every one of the authors of these books that I just mentioned, in hopes that I can have a conversation with them and bring what they contributed towards this through their thoughts, through the writing of the book, and how it applies to dispute system design and conflict resolution in the future. So thank you, and thanks for listening, and I hope these videos help. I'm trying to segment them by topic, so that you can only have to watch what you're interested in. Thank you.